I'm Lyndsey Smith with RealAgriculture.com. It is my immense pleasure to introduce you to my guest today, Mr. Wheat Pete. How you doing?
Awesome, thanks, Lyndsey. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So, Peter Johnson, we're headed into the first week of April. Everybody's itching to get out in the field. Anything happening yet?
So there should be a ton of things happening, Lyndsey, and unfortunately, the weather has been so backward. We're looking at another spring of 2014. Not quite. We didn't have the ice, but things are slow. There's no question. I finished my own clover on Sunday morning. I know I shouldn't work Sundays, but you got to go when the frost is there, and that's very late for me. Normally, I would be finished my clover or hope to finish my clover by the 15th of March. We would normally expect to have some opportunity to get out there on frost and do some frost seeding to get some nitrogen on the wheat crop, and almost nothing has happened because it is just a delayed spring. And that's starting to make some of us worry about where do we go with fertilizing this wheat crop? Where do we go with red clover? What is the best management strategy?
Okay, so you're going to provide us those answers. What is the best strategy?
Yeah, so in my opinion, you really have two wheat crops. And the early wheat, so the wheat that got planted before the 1st of October or the 5th of October, it got some good weather on it, it's got tillers, and it doesn't need much management at this particular point in time. Unfortunately, that's not much of the wheat crop. We never get that wheat planted as early as I would like to. The other side of that story is that the bulk of the wheat crop, even the wheat that got planted Thanksgiving weekend, and most years, 90% of our wheat gets planted Thanksgiving weekend. It's just the way it seems to come together. Even that wheat that we would consider normal time frame for wheat, October was so cold and so wet, and November was backward. Almost our best month was December. All of that wheat from the 5th or the 8th of October on, it's all acting like November planted wheat. And November planted wheat needs different management because it barely emerged. A lot of it emerged at Christmas. Some of it didn't emerge at all. It has no tillers. Now remember, we seed somewhere around in the range of 35 seeds per square foot, give or take. And we need about 600 heads per square foot to have a good wheat crop. Or pardon me, 60 heads per square foot to have a good wheat crop. So we seed 35. We maybe establish 25 or 22, something like that. And if I want 60, I need the main head plus 2 tillers per plant to really have an excellent wheat crop. Now I have wheat out there, this late wheat that has no tillers. I need to do something to stimulate it, and that's called nitrogen. The big hassle, most years I would say put on 60 or 80 pounds on the frost because the wheat is starting to go. Right now, we may not get the opportunity on frost because it's so late. Once the actual frozen ground, once that frost comes right out of the ground, there may be no cold nights to run on that skiff of frost when we normally do, and just a whole lot of people getting pretty antsy about trying to stimulate this late planted wheat. So the management strategy has changed. We're back now to saying, let's run immediately, even on frozen ground. First time, I think, in my career, I've recommended nitrogen on frozen ground, but it's the end of it's the end of March, it's the 1st of April, we don't have the window anymore, and I need to make sure I get that early shot of nitrogen out there. So instead of splitting my nitrogen, if I was going to split, 80 pounds up front, come back on the 10th of May with the other 50 or 60 or whatever application I was going to go with, which is a pretty standard thing on most years. This year, I don't want to take the risk of 80 pounds and lose a bunch. I don't want to take the risk of not having any nitrogen there to stimulate that early growth. So 30 pounds of nitrogen now, it's enough for the little plants we have there. If we do get the cold, wet, backward April where we get a lot of loss, we might lose 50% of the 30 pounds we put there, but we can afford that loss. So it's a different management strategy than normal. The other thing that I think people need to be aware of is make sure that you add the sulfur at this stage. The reason for that is if I'm a dry person, I add ammonium sulfate, dry ammonium sulfate, to get my 10 pounds of sulfur. I also add about 10 pounds of nitrogen in the ammonium form. critical to have some readily available nitrogen there, and urea is not readily available. So that 10-pound shot in the ammonium form from ammonium sulfate, add another 20 pounds of nitrogen out of urea, which will become available in the next couple of weeks, and it gets us to the 30-pound total. It makes enough in the spreader that I can actually do the job. And if I'm using 28% or 32% UAN to put that on, I throw the ammonium thiosol in at this point to put the sulfur on, because I won't lose the sulfur, and it's just that much less I have to do come late April or into early May when we put the second shot on.
All right, and now, of course, the other early task would be clover. And now you were out there getting that on the field, but that doesn't necessarily mean a lot have. But we have, of course, been having many conversations about, is clover the best option? So what's the discussion out there about multi-species cover crops?
Yeah, so absolutely. First off, let me just back up and just talk quickly about clover. And I've said this many times, but please, on the late planted wheat crop, it is single cut clover only. And that's because double cut clover, late planted wheat, not enough crop competition. Come harvest, the double cut clover is as tall as the wheat. I get nothing but grief. On the early planted wheat, double cut clover is the Cadillac. Go with double cut clover. On the late planted wheat, it's single cut clover. But yes, there's been lots of chatter about this roots not iron concept, right, Lyndsey? And that's really cool because it means more growers will plant cover crops. Number one job of the farmer, harvest the sun. So we can do that, but I really worry about growers not using red clover and saying, no, I'm just going to plant this multi-mix after the wheat gets harvested. When the wheat gets harvested, then they're going to go to this multi-mix cover crop and realize it costs $50 to $80 an acre. And all of a sudden they're going to say, wow, boy, I wasn't going to spend that much. You know, the price of wheat isn't that good. Farming's in a bit of a downturn. That's $5,000 on a 100-acre farm. How can I afford to do that? So I think the answer is that we continue with red clover. We have all sorts of excellent data. I just showed today at the meeting some super data from Dave Hooker that averaged the 2010 to 2013 information from Ridgetown College together, and lo and behold, we have said since 1985 that there is a 75-pound nitrogen credit to red clover. Guess what the 2010 to 2013 data said? A 74-pound nitrogen credit. If 74 isn't close to 75, what is? So we know the value of red clover, and if you want to take one farm and take that field, that 50 acres, and say, here's where I'm going to try the multi-mix cover crop, and let's see if it's better than red clover. Let's see if I can really manage it. But to walk entirely away from red clover that cost me $10 an acre, and I know the benefit. I know that I get 14% more soybean yield. I know that I get another 75 pounds of nitrogen. I know that I get more corn yield out of the red clover. We have that data in spades. I just don't want growers to go away from it. Get that clover on immediately. I don't care if you're spreading it on snow. I've had people say, well, I don't want to spread it on snow. There's too much snow up against the bush lot or whatever. I spread snow right up to the bush lot. It was melted enough that the ATV ran up on top of it, didn't broke through. I'm not worried at all about spreading on that snow. It'll make it, or if it doesn't make it, it's not a big portion of the field anyway. It's critical to get it on early so that it starts early. It has that freeze-thaw action. It has the moisture it needs. Get that job done.
All right. Okay, so to walk a little away from wheat for just a minute, there is, of course, still corn that didn't get in last fall that is maybe starting to come off now. Bring us up to speed, because, of course, we've been following along with this.
Yeah, absolutely. But walk away from wheat. You can never walk away from wheat.
Only for a moment, Wheat Pete. Only for a moment.
Oh, gosh. So I've been really intrigued to follow the corn harvest. And my own corn, by the way, is still in the field because I still have too much snow. I'm in the snow belt. But a lot of growers who are outside of the snow belt have been back at corn harvest, and a really good news story for the most part. So standability, on most fields has remained excellent. Now, this whole snow fence concept, and next fall we're going to have to talk more about the snow fence concept, or the next time we get into a late corn harvest, because do I ever see that in my own neighborhood where I left my outside 4 rows and I managed to combine the next 8 or 12 or 16 rows so that the outside 4 rows is the snow fence and all the snow settles out where the corn is gone. The guys that didn't do that, there is some real nightmares where that corn is just so flat it's virtually 100% yield loss. However, where the growers who don't live in the snow belt, and they're the ones out harvesting the crop, they don't get that deep snow the same way that some of us do in the snow belt. And the story has been great. Coming out of the field, anywhere from 15 to 18% moisture, and some growers hauling it directly to an end user like an ethanol plant or Casco, somewhere that can take that in directly, and no drying, just shrink on that even at 16% in many cases. So that's a huge saving compared to last fall, over $1 a bushel that they're saving there. The kernel integrity last fall at 32%, that stuff was just mush in the combine bin in many cases. The kernel integrity now is excellent. The test weight hasn't improved as much as we would anticipate. We often think that it will gain a grade or even 2 grades. This year, a lot of guys are telling me that they're going from a low grade 4 to a high grade 4, or from a high grade 4 to a low grade 3. So it has gained in test weight, not as much as maybe we had hoped for, but they're still getting that crop right out of the field with excellent standability, very little loss in terms of lodging issues in most fields. And the other thing that I'm really pleased with, you remember that black corn I showed you, Lyndsey?
Mm-hmm. Disgusting.
And it just looked, yeah, exactly. So really was pretty concerned that some of that might show up in the bin and that could cause a downgrading all the way from the Niagara Peninsula where they're harvesting up through Middlesex County they're harvesting, even up to Shelburne where they aren't in the snow belt and they've been harvesting up there. That black that was on those kernels is just blowing out the back of the combine, and the sample in the bin looks excellent. So great quality, great yields, no drying charge, no storage. It's not a bad story the way it's working out.
Okay, so this is very interesting. And I do, now, first and foremost, I hope we don't have a fall like last fall. So the next time we have a fall like last fall, let's say in 5 years from now, let's explore.
Or 10.
Yeah, let's explore the snow fence idea. But I'm going to take better weather over the snow fence. Anyway, fascinating stuff. And thank you as always, Wheat Pete. Of course, at Wheat Pete on Twitter. It is Peter Johnson joining us today. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Super, thanks, Lyndsey.